The 2026 Nissan Leaf sits in an interesting place right now, not because it's chasing headlines, but because it quietly represents a different idea of what an electric car can be in a market that's grown louder, heavier, and more expensive. The Leaf isn't trying to redefine performance or overwhelm you with innovation theater. It's trying to solve a much more practical problem: how to live with an electric car every day without constantly thinking about the fact that it's electric. That's an important distinction. In 2026, the EV space has split into two dominant narratives. On one side, you have high-output, software-driven vehicles pushing range, acceleration, and screen count. On the other, there's a growing demand for something calmer, an EV that feels like a normal car first and a powertrain choice second. The Leaf firmly belongs in the latter category. The problem it's designed to solve isn't speed or status. It's predictability. Predictable costs, predictable behavior, predictable ownership. For buyers who want to transition away from combustion without reorganizing their entire lifestyle, that matters more than raw numbers. Power delivery in the Leaf reflects that philosophy. Acceleration is immediate enough to feel confident in traffic, but it doesn't encourage aggressive driving. The tuning favors smoothness over excitement, which makes sense for a car that expects to spend most of its life in urban and suburban environments. You're not rewarded for pushing it. You're rewarded for settling into a rhythm. And that restraint pays off in efficiency, tire wear, and long-term mechanical simplicity. Comfort follows a similar logic. The suspension is compliant rather than sporty, tuned to absorb imperfect roads instead of communicating every surface detail. On longer drives, that decision becomes noticeable, in a good way. You arrive less fatigued, and the car fades into the background, which is often the highest compliment you can give a daily vehicle. Let's pause here for a second, because this is where the Leaf tends to be misunderstood. It's not underwhelming, it's intentionally unambitious, and that's what gives it clarity. Inside, the white exterior sets the tone before you even open the door. It projects neutrality, not flash. That carries through the cabin, where materials and layout prioritize familiarity. Controls are where you expect them to be. Screens exist to deliver information, not to dominate your attention. The technology works best when you stop noticing it, and that's largely the case here. Driver assistance features operate quietly in the background, intervening when needed without turning every drive into a lesson in automation. This approach supports long-term ownership confidence. The Leaf isn't over-dependent on bleeding-edge systems that may age poorly or require constant updates to remain usable. Its technology is mature, well understood, and intentionally conservative. That tends to translate into fewer surprises 5 or 7 years down the road, financially and emotionally. Daily usability is where the Leaf earns its keep. Cabin space is practical rather than generous, but it's shaped intelligently. Storage solutions feel designed by people who actually commute, grocery shop, and park in tight spaces. Charging fits into normal routines instead of dictating them. You don't need to plan your week around the car adapts to your week. Future readiness in this context doesn't mean chasing maximum range or autonomous promises. It means remaining relevant as infrastructure improves and expectations normalize. The Leaf is ready for that future because it doesn't rely on extremes. As charging networks expand and electricity pricing stabilizes, vehicles like this become easier to justify, not harder. Another brief pause. Who is this vehicle really for? It's for someone who values stability over novelty. Someone who wants an EV that behaves like transportation, not a technology statement. It suits households adding a second car, commuters with predictable routes, and drivers who plan to keep their vehicle well past the warranty period. Who isn't it for? Buyers seeking excitement, prestige, or cutting-edge experimentation will find it too reserved. If acceleration figures or aggressive styling define value for you, the Leaf will feel quiet to the point of invisibility. And that's okay, Because invisibility is the point. The design supports this identity. The white finish emphasizes clean surfaces and modest proportions, avoiding visual weight. It doesn't try to look futuristic, it tries to look appropriate. Aerodynamics serve efficiency, not drama. The result is a car that doesn't age quickly, which again reinforces long-term ownership confidence. Driving the 2026 Leaf feels less like piloting a product launch and more like using a well-designed appliance. That might sound dismissive, but it isn't. Appliances earn trust by working every day without demanding attention. In a market crowded with ambition, the Leaf's restraint is its strongest statement. It represents a mature phase of electrification, one where the goal isn't to impress, but to integrate. And for the right buyer, that makes it one of the more honest EVs on the road today.